Get ready to spend some time with the Ayatollah of rock and rolla himself, Lord Humongous. Because this week on MySequel, we tackled Mad Max The Road Warrior, the first sequel to the 1979 cult classic Mad Max. So, great 1980s action, all sorts of craziness. If you've seen the newer movie, Mad Max Fury Road, which we'll actually be tackling in an upcoming MySequel, you're going to enjoy this one too, because it is more of the same, just a little bit less budget, and an angry Mel Gibson as opposed to an angry Tom Hardy. So get your eardrums ready, because this week's MySequel, we discuss The Road Warrior. Welcome, Internet, to the MySequel podcast. My name is Garrett Olson. I'm your host. Tonight, we have with us Robert Soderstrom,
Oh, that's me. I'm here.
Ryan Brewer,
Yo.
and Matt Pittman.
Hello, everyone.
Those of you that listen to other episodes, you'll notice Jake is not with us tonight. He's a loser and had to work, so...
Loser.
Yeah, that's what we feel about you, Jake. I hope you listen to this and you know we hate you. That should be this entire podcast, is we should just send messages to Jake and see if he actually listens to the podcast. All right. Anyway, tonight, we're actually going to record two episodes back to back. This first episode, we're going to talk about The Road Warrior. And then in episode 2, we're actually going to talk about the new Mad Max Fury Road. So all sorts of Mad Max talk tonight. So The Road Warrior, Mad Max 2. Robert had an interesting bit of information about Road Warrior and the naming of it, of why it's not called Mad Max 2.
Yeah, well, it is called Mad Max 2.
Yeah.
Apparently, so first of all, we have to understand that as far as Americans were concerned, Mad Max sucked, right? It was not a popular movie. It kind of grew in popularity after it hit the small screen, but when it first came out, it did not do well, right? So,
On American shores.
So when Mad Max 2 was released, that was its title. It was released in Australia. It's an Australian movie, Mad Max 2. When it was released in the States, apparently their distribution company was changing leadership or ownership or something, and so they didn't do a very good release. Well, sometime later, Universal Pictures did a re-release, and because Mad Max did so poorly, instead of calling it Mad Max 2, which was what it was called, they changed the name to Road Warrior, and in their advertising and all their media stuff, they completely left out any mention to Mad Max. So people didn't realize that it was a sequel to Mad Max until after they'd already gotten into the film and was watching, and the black and white flashbacks popped on screen.
So they had to literally trick the American audience into watching
And
a Mad Max movie.
And
That's
it
awesome.
worked with much success. Too much success, because then we got Thunderdome.
Thunderdome.
Right.
Which, unfortunately, we're not talking about Thunderdome tonight, even though that would be an interesting discussion. in
But
and
I
of
don't think you
itself.
can have a Mad Max discussion without at least mentioning Thunderdome.
Oh, we'll
though.
mention Thunderdome. But can't we get beyond Thunderdome?
Yes, let's.
That
let's
was gay.
Get,
That's actually...
Oh.
I'm sorry. That's actually a Mystery Science Theater 3000 joke.
Wow.
So, anyway. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. It's kind of funny, though, you talk about that it did really poorly. Funny enough, though, my dad loves Mad Max, and he had the VHS of the original Mad Max growing up. So I saw the original Mad Max long time ago on VHS. So I did know that Road Warrior was a sequel.
Yeah, my parents were like terrible parents, and they let us watch R-rated movies all the time when I was growing up. So I had seen both Mad Max and Road Warrior
Yep.
when I was a small child.
Yep.
And knew that they were interconnected.
Yep. So,
Well, and it's painfully clear. I mean, you're in the
Right.
movie
Oh, yeah.
for not 3 minutes, and you're seeing clips of Mad Max. So.
Yes.
well, it's angry Mel Gibson as well.
Mhm.
So
Well, and you'll notice now, though, too, like I even just, when I was looking on IMDb here, they have it listed now as Mad Max 2 Road Warrior as the official title now.
That actually makes me kind of sad. I like it just being the Road Warrior.
The Road Warrior.
Yeah.
I kind of like that too. It's almost kind of got like that the Rambo feel, only without the confusion.
First Blood.
First Blood.
Part 2.
So, what was it about the first movie that people didn't like, or what was?
Well, I think.
Well, to be clear now, they didn't. It wasn't well received during its initial release. It had since developed a cult following. Mad Max is now a popular and well liked movie, but at the time, and maybe just American audiences weren't ready for it. I don't know.
Well, I think a little bit too. I don't think the original Mad Max is that good of a movie, honestly. Like, I like it, but you go back and watch it, and there's a lot of weird problems with the original Mad Max, I think. Road Warrior is, I think, very much the superior movie.
Well, I don't know if I would call Road Warrior superior, but I think it might kind of suffer from that. The two movies have a similar relationship to that of the Terminator movies, where like T2 is often considered the pinnacle of the franchise, if not the best, and many people prefer it over the first. But the first one was still great for what it was at the time. And I think Mad Max and Road Warrior have a similar issue. Like Mad Max, I felt, was a great movie for what it was.
Yeah.
But the Road Warrior was a bit of a departure, but enough of a departure to where it was still good in its own right. Like just a great action movie. It was a little more action oriented.
Well,
I think, but
maybe I mean, because like I see what you're saying with the Terminator thing, but the thing with the Terminator is Terminator was a horror film. Terminator 2 was
sci-fi horror.
Well, horror nonetheless. I mean, it was a rated R horror flick.
No,
Terminator
actually,
2,
I
on
think
the other hand, was an action movie. So I mean, what you had there was a change of genre.
Well, sort. I mean, I
little
think
bit.
actually, I think they're both considered sci-fi action.
I
don't
think
the first one is classified.
I
as
think you
horror.
could consider the first one an action movie.
When it came out, it was totally horror.
Really?
It was a horror release.
That's weird
It
thinking
was
about
a
it now.
skeleton-looking robot killing people. It was science fiction, no doubt, but it was a
Right.
science fiction horror film.
I find that weird, though. I would totally classify the original Terminator as an action movie, but I think what's interesting about the difference between so Mad Max. We'll explain real briefly if you've never seen Mad Max, the original. It's a post-apocalyptic future. Well, the original Mad Max isn't quite post-apocalyptic at
The
that
world's
point.
falling apart.
The world is
it's-
falling apart.
Fallout 1.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's well, I think there's society. There's still society. There's still cops, and Max is a cop in the original movie. So there's still kind of society, but basically everything's on the brink. Gasoline, there's no more gasoline and they call it guzzling. Guzzling.
But diesel is still called diesel.
Yeah, but I don't know why. I don't know if that's an Australian thing or what, but it's guzzling. But so in the original movie, Max is a cop. He runs afoul of some kind of raiders, people, and they kill his wife and his child. And then he goes on a revenge. So the original Mad Max movie is kind of a revenge movie. It's like Death Wish.
Mhm.
It's like a little slight post-apocalyptic Death Wish is kind of the original Mad Max. I mean, I think that's as far as we need to get into what Mad Max was. Because honestly, the Road Warrior doesn't have that much to do with the original Mad Max. I mean, it's the same character, but he's a very different character when we meet him in the Road Warrior. And it was kind of funny. We were talking about, before we started recording, okay, I think it's like 7 or so years between Mad Max 1 and Road Warrior. It's not that long of a time in between. But like I said, Mad Max 1, there's still society. You know, things are on the brink, but there's still society. Road Warrior, it looks like they've had no society in like 20 years. Like, Road Warrior feels way more post-apocalyptic. Like, everything has gone completely wrong. There is no society. Cannibals and
So this is
rapers and killers, and I mean, there is no. And again, Max was originally a cop, and there aren't cops anymore. There isn't even that anymore.
well, yeah, but and I'm just asking here because so when Road Warrior starts, we're given the impression that Max has been on the road.
Yep.
Is it not possible that he came from a place that had a little bit of society left, and because he's a shell of a man, is what they call him, he's just out on the road doing wandering. He's the wanderer.
Mhm.
Yep.
Is it not possible that he just kind of found himself into a place where there's nothing. I mean,
I think you could maybe make that argument. I think at the end of the day, I think it is just
because I think
they wanted to make a different movie.
Yeah.
They're connected.
Yeah, but I mean, if we're following
they didn't really care.
storyline, and it is a sequel, so I mean, there's still
It is a
some
sequel.
connection. So
Yes,
but I mean, he's gone someplace where there is nothing.
You know what? Actually, what really gets to me about it is that there's with Mad Max and Road Warrior. Ever since I started doing the movie comparison thing, I just suddenly had a thought, and that's that it almost seems like it has the same issue as the Evil Dead movies, where Road Warrior almost feels more like the movie that George Miller wanted to make, whereas Mad Max was the movie that he could afford to make at the time. And thus, I think that almost kind of is why you see such a huge change.
I think that makes sense.
I mean, that's just an assumption. It's not, I know,
Right.
not based on any kind of real legitimate fact or anything, but that's just kind of the way it feels to me. Like,
Well, I think the movie George Miller wanted to make was Fury Road when we start discussing
Right.
Fury Road.
right, yeah.
I think one other thing to consider too is that Australia is a big place, and there's probably a lot of places in Australia that aren't that far off of this right now.
There are people in Australia already living Mad Max
Yeah.
right now.
There's actually the region, kind of the interior of Australia, I think, that attracts a lot of people that go like hunt for gold and stuff, and they're kind of people on the fringes of society anyway. So
I can see. I think you can make that argument. I think at the end of the day, I think it does feel off. I mean, I think you can kind of explain it away enough where you can be like, okay, like I didn't see Road Warrior and be like, this is bullshit. This doesn't make any sense. But I do think that there is a slight problem there. I think you can't explain it, but
I
do think they do feel quite a bit different from one another.
I think there is, however, another way that it can be explained, and I believe this actually came from George Miller himself, and that's that the idea behind the character of Mad Max is that he might not even necessarily be a real person. That Mad Max himself is actually just a legend. He's a word of mouth person passed down from generation to generation.
Other people could be Mad
yes,
Max.
exactly. And so like that's
like that.
yeah, and
That's
the whole
interesting.
idea that's why each movie is a completely different story with Mad Max and a completely different adventure, because George Miller's idea behind the character is that he's a universal mythological symbol, and in this particular wasteland, and so he just sort of gets interwoven into conflicts because people just like, oh well, Mad Max was there. He's the one who
Yeah, well,
helped me save the day. And-
doesn't Road Warrior end with somebody relating the
Yes.
story?
Yeah.
The,
So
the,
that
the
extends
feral
in
kid.
perfectly.
and that's actually, and I'm pretty sure I heard that directly from George Miller himself, is that's why each
That's
movie is so very
fascinating.
different.
I like that. I think that makes a ton of sense, and then it even feeds into Fury Road when we start talking about that.
Mhm.
That it does feed in pretty nicely into Fury Road. Then that it's not the same person necessarily.
And that's why Max never settles down.
Yeah.
No matter, like, even when the day is won and peace has been gained and the good guys have the fuel or the water or whatever it is that they needed, or the bad guys have been defeated, Max still leaves. He
Yeah.
always goes off because he doesn't belong anywhere, yet he is everywhere. It's just kind of this really crazy mythological thing that George Miller did with the character that I loved.
Wow. So
Yeah, I
my
like
mind
that.
was just blown. Okay, I had never heard that before, and I love it. I think that explains a lot. Actually, I kind of like that. I like that as an explanation of why they do feel. I mean, like, because I think Thunderdome fits in with Road Warrior, as stupid as Thunderdome is. But it kind of feels like they exist together more than I think Road Warrior and Mad Max fit together. But Road
Right.
Warrior. But we're talking about Road Warrior.
Well,
Damn
and
it.
to that too. I mean, this is a smaller point too, and it kind of piggybacks on what you said about the movie that he made, the movie that he wanted made. But he made his first movie, and you have to assume that there was lessons that he learned from the first movie that he applied to the second movie,
Right.
which made a huge difference too.
And George Miller he has like a shot that is in like every one of his movies, which is like a couple of frames close up of a guy's face and eyeballs bulging out, is in every one of George Miller's movies, except for Big in the City. Except for maybe it isn't Babe Pig. I hope somewhere
What
it's
about
in
Happy
Babe.
Feet? Is there
I hope
is
it's
there
in
is there an
Happy Feet.
eyes bulging scene
Yeah,
in Happy
I
Feet?
really hope so.
I have to go back and watch it now and find out.
Yeah, because in the first Mad Max, it's when the main guy gets killed when he runs headlong into Max and his eye is bulging. I can't remember when it happens in Road Warrior, but it happens in Road Warrior, and I think it happens in Fury Road, and he keeps putting him in, which is fantastic because it's stupid, but it's funny. So Road Warrior.
Somebody gets run over, I think, is when that happens.
Yeah, it's usually when somebody gets or they're about to be hit,
Right.
or stuff like that. But it's just a funny
No,
little thing.
it was when Mad Max stumbled on that semi. After the beginning of the movie, he's being chased by those guys. He finally gets some guys off of him, and he stops to inspect the semi. He opens up the semi door, and a body falls out, and the body that falls out's got his eyes open.
Oh, okay.
Ah.
So there you go. But yeah, it shows up.
That's where he finds a little music box that he gives the little feral kid. That makes the little feral kid his pet.
The feral kid. That is a weird character. That I think one of the funnest things, and one of the big differences from Mad Max to Road Warrior, and even pretty much all the later Mad Max movies, is the weird characters. They're not nearly as weird in Mad Max, but there's weird. There's the gyrocopter guy. There's the feral kid. And one of the greatest villains of all time, I think you have to go with, is
Humongous?
Lord Humongous.
I always thought it was pronounced humongous, not humongous.
I can't remember.
Maybe it's pronounced.
I always call him Humongous, but
Lord Big Guy in the short shorts.
he's
Yeah.
awesome. Just walk away.
Did you ever
Walk away.
Have you ever heard the fan theory surrounding Lord Humongous?
No.
That he is actually it is a very well known fan theory, actually, in fact, that it is believed that Lord Humongous is actually Max's partner from the first movie.
Oh my God.
It's and they said that there's plenty of evidence to support it, including the fact that the gun that he uses, the one that he opens up the suitcase for, that's actually a standard issue for the cops from the first movie.
Oh.
And there's some other, like, there's some scar burning from I think he was on fire at one point. I can't remember the first movie very well or how he died, but there's like a ton of different little details that are supposed to indicate that apparently this guy might actually have been
I kind of love that.
his partner from the first movie.
Well, regardless of who Humongous is, I fucking love Lord Humongous. He is such a great villain. And
Yeah.
then his pet Wez,
I think it was
Waz, who is weird and then has his gay lover killed by the feral kid.
Oh yeah.
Throws his boomerang. So basically, the plot of Road Warrior, there isn't much of a plot in Road Warrior, but the real basics of it is Mad Max is crossing the wasteland. He ends upon a little encampment that has a bunch of diesel and gasoline and stuff, and they're being surrounded by raiders led by Lord Humongous. Lord Humongous wants the gas. The people want to escape to the coast, start a new life. Max makes a deal with them and ends up helping them escape Lord Humongous. I mean, that's pretty much the basic, real basic beats that happen in the movie. Like I said, it's really a pretty basic movie. There isn't that much plot, and there isn't much dialogue.
No. Mel Gibson, Mad Max has 16 lines of dialogue in the entire movie, and 2 of those lines are the same line. I'm only here for the gasoline.
Yep. Which is awesome because a lot of people, I mean, not to talk too much about Fury Road, but people were mad that Tom Hardy barely speaks in Fury Road.
more.
10 words or something.
Right. Which is I don't know how much it is, but I mean it's like no, that's perfectly in line with like Road Warrior. He talks a lot more in Thunderdome, but I mean that's the character. He doesn't say much. He's just a badass in leather, and he's got the badass sawed-off shotgun, which I think like the poster for Road Warrior is one of the coolest posters ever made. That's even why it's in South Park. Because which kid has it? Is it Kyle or Stan on his wall has a poster of the Road Warrior?
Pretty sure it's Stan.
Is it Stan? Yeah. One of them does, though. But they have one of the kids in South Park has the Road Warrior. I've even heard Joss Whedon one time said that he thinks Road Warrior is the perfect movie.
I could see why. I mean, it's...
Yeah. So
it accomplishes so much with so very little.
Yep.
It manages to be entertaining and action-packed. And there's still that subtle hint of, emotion to it. I mean, there's some drama there, but
I think it's interesting,
it does it without going into too much detail, without focusing on all the details that nobody really cares about anyway.
Right.
Well, I mean, and you got to be. Mel Gibson doesn't say a lot, but
No.
there's a lot of dialogue in that movie. I mean,
Yeah.
there are other characters that are talking all the damn time.
Yes.
So it's not like it's a dialogue-free movie.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean there's talking and stuff, but it's just not done by Max.
Right.
But no, Road Warrior, I think we're all pretty much in agreement that we all love Road Warrior. Some of the, I guess so far most of the movies we've done have been movies that we enjoy.
Well,
this is continuing that thread that I fucking love Road Warrior.
Yeah.
I gotta say, until Ryan said what Ryan said about him being a myth,
Mhm.
I was not in favor of doing this as a podcast because, in my mind, this was just a sequel.
Mhm.
And that's not interesting. That's not why we elected to do this. But the fact that it could be,
That Mad Max isn't
that
necessarily.
kind of changed things for me. Yeah, but I mean, it's still kind of on the fence for me. I mean, this is a great movie,
Mhm.
but the sequel doesn't.
I think the reason why, I mean, who was even the one that said, Ryan, was this your suggestion or was this Jake's?
This one was Jake's.
It's
I think it's
Jake's.
Yeah.
And he's not even
Hashtag
here.
Jake's not here, so he can eat a dick.
Right. But I'm actually, I think I'm a little bit disagreeing with you. I think this fits in line with what we're talking about because I think Road Warrior. I know this is just going to be the podcast. Rubber and I disagreeing with each other, but I think it fits because I think Road Warrior is such a different movie than Mad Max. I think it's interesting to talk about the progression from Mad Max to Road Warrior because it's, like I said, it is such a different movie. But I mean, yeah, in the first movie, again, he's a cop. He's got a family and things like that, and it makes sense that if it is the same character in the myth or whatever, that he's very different in the sequel. But he's kind of he's like a roaming. It's almost like the old samurai movies,
Mhm.
a little bit. I think you could equate Road Warrior a little bit to some of the older samurai
He was like
movies.
Kane from Kung Fu.
Or a lot of Western movies.
Yeah,
The drifter
Yeah.
arrives in town and
right. And then isn't a nice guy, but also will right the wrongs.
Mhm.
And yeah, and I think Road Warrior, in a way, is kind of a Western. It's Australian, so it's not gonna be, Wild West.
Well,
But it kind of
it's like a modern
fits.
day Western.
Yeah,
It's
it fits
it's
along.
what a Western would be like if
It's a
you know.
post-apocalyptic Western, perhaps.
Right,
Yeah,
there you go. But it's, but I mean, that's what it is, and I think like a lot of westerns too, the plot is fairly sparse.
Mhm.
Like a lot of movies like that. Like like you said, the Dollar trilogy. Good, Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah.
A
Yep.
few dollars more.
they're all pretty simple.
Yeah, they're all very simple movies. That it's pretty basic of what they are, but
Mhm.
in execution, just executed really, really well, and it looks cool. I really like. I don't know why the future is always like post-apocalyptic is always like a leather bar, and I almost wonder, was this the movie that kind of got that trend going a little bit? I don't know. I don't know if
suppose
it
it
was
could
the
have been.
one, but it would have been early enough. But I mean, that is the thing. Like most post-apocalyptic you see, it's all leather bars.
Mhm.
And I guess it maybe makes sense, but it is.
I think maybe that might have been the case, perhaps here in America, seeing it for the first time. But I think that particular style may have already been prevalent in cinema
Could be.
prior to Mad Max. It might not have been done in that exact way,
Right.
but
I think this maybe at least popularized it.
yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of bondage going on there, a little bit of
Yeah.
S&M.
Lord Humongous's mask.
Yeah,
And-
Not so subtle homosexual.
yeah.
Oh yeah, they're all
Very much so, and I think especially if you look at it from a foreign country standpoint, America definitely would not have been as open to that.
I don't.
Well, this was into the Reagan years, so
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like I don't think this movie would have been made in America.
Mhm.
it's kind of
No.
surprising that like Road Warrior even kind of got the following it did. I could see how it's more popular now than it was then because this really did go against a lot of the movies from that time. Like
Mhm.
a lot of those were more like we could go out and solve our problems by shooting the bad guys. Than
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
stuff,
like
and
we
then
were
this
talking
is
about
kinda like-
Rambo when we were talking
Yeah.
about Rambo
Mhm.
First Blood Part 2.
Well, no, I'd like to point out, I think this movie could have been made in America, and I say that only, and I haven't seen this movie, but I know of it. The Warriors.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of.
But the
Yes.
Warrior, but I think the thing is, yeah, I mean, I guess, Road Warrior could have been made. I don't know if it would have been as popular because the Warriors is really.
Of course not. America didn't like it when it first came out. Duh.
Well, they liked Road Warrior when it came out.
because it was a much different.
Because they were
movie.
tricked.
We've already had that conversation.
But
They were deceived.
Well, I think The Warriors is a movie that people think is way more popular than it actually is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, have you guys seen The Warriors?
I have seen small pieces of it, but I've never actually seen the full movie.
No, I haven't.
I've been meaning to
like I
watch
said,
it
I know
because
of it.
it's
mean,
supposed to be a big
yeah,
cult
it's-
classic.
Matt and
but-
I have seen it because I bought it.
I don't really think it's that great.
It's kind of a shitty movie. It's really a shitty movie.
It's kind of different. It does have kind of like a different aesthetic to it, and it is kind of like it doesn't look like probably any of the movies that were
No.
being
See,
made
and
at
that's
the time and stuff.
It's,
so.
it's funny that you would say that too, because when I think of Mad Max or The Road Warrior in terms of being an American-made movie, I can see it being made in America, but it would totally be like
I think
the
it'd be very
70s
different.
grindhouse B movie that nobody would ever hear about
Mhm.
until like the 90s when Tarantino comes along and decides to
Right.
homage, quote unquote
yeah.
homage every last scene from the movie.
Right.
And then suddenly people are like, oh, what's this movie he keeps talking about? Oh, Mad Max, let's go back and watch that. But no, it was made overseas and
Mhm.
came out over here, and then we got tricked into watching the sequel. So it was,
Yeah, I think it would be a different movie if it was made in America.
Yeah.
I think it would have been different than this movie is. I think one of my favorite things about Road Warrior though was the popularity of Road Warrior, of how many shitty Italian sci-fi movies came out afterwards that are completely ripping off the Road Warrior. I watch I've probably mentioned this before on the podcast.
The spaghetti post-apocalyptic
yeah.
movies.
Is Riff Tracks from the guys who used to do Mystery Science Theater 3000. They have a bunch of old movies, and they've got one, Warriors of the Wasteland, and it's Italian, and it is a direct ripoff of the Road Warrior. It is exactly the Road Warrior,
yeah.
and it's just funny. And there was a lot of them. There was a lot of that. It became popular enough that it kind of became its own subgenre in Italian cinema, where they were cranking out these really shitty movies. that
Well,
were-
and if you think
Road
about
Warrior.
it, really, I mean, the Road Warrior more or less kickstarted that entire genre for
Yeah.
not just for foreign audiences, but for American audiences as well. I mean, not that post-apocalyptic movies hadn't necessarily been done before that,
Right.
but that particular style, that particular brand of action and gruesome aesthetic was. I mean, you didn't really see that before then. And then, like every movie now that you see that has any kind of apocalyptic nature to it, you can just look at it and be like, oh, that's Road Warrior.
Yeah.
That's Road Warrior. This came from Road Warrior. This is obviously inspired by Mad Max, and it's like even games like Fallout. Like
Oh,
Fallout
yeah.
is straight up takes directly.
Well, there's
from
like
Mad
the
Max,
original
and it's-
Fallout. A lot of the armor, like some of the leather armor, looks exactly like what Max wears.
Well, even in the newer ones, the
Mhm.
Fallout 3 and Vegas and 4. I mean,
yeah, they're wearing Max's outfit.
yeah.
If it
exactly.
wasn't
The-
for
the
Road
Raider
Warrior, you
outfits,
wouldn't
everything.
know that football pads could be used for more than just sport.
Exactly.
I think one of my favorite things about Road Warrior, in what makes it far superior to Mad Max as well, is the vehicular stuff. Like, I mean, there's some driving in Mad Max, but I mean, that's not really the point. I mean, there's some of that in there, but just this, I love this. And it's so stupid because in a world where you don't have much gas and people have these gas guzzling death machines that they're driving around in, but they're fucking awesome. All of
Yeah.
the car combat stuff that they do is just awesome.
Yeah. It almost kind of makes it worth wasting the last of the world's gasoline to see that.
It's like, yeah, that's fucking awesome.
I gotta say though, and we'll talk more about this in the next one. But remembering Road Warrior, I remembered that they had all them badass cars and that the road combat and what you're talking about, was crazy.
Right.
But then we went and we saw Fury Road.
Oh yeah, I mean he
And then Fury Road is so fucking over the top.
he dialed that to 11.
Yeah.
And then
He took it straight
Today,
to 11
when I
with
was
that.
watching Road Warrior, I'm like, this is sort of boring.
Yeah.
This is really slow paced.
The-
Oh, look, the guy fell off the semi. Been there, done that.
I think the real important theme in those movies is that every scene should look like the cover of a heavy metal album.
Right.
Yep.
Like every frame has to
Yes.
look like that.
Yep. Well, and that's what is great, leading into the other movies, and even Beyond Thunderdome, is just the villains. I think it's one of my favorite things about the later, after the original Mad Max, just the villains of it. Like Lord Humongous is great in this, and Woz and some of his raiders, and then even Thunderdome.
Tina Turner.
Tina Turner wasn't great,
Really?
but Shocking.
Yeah.
Shocking that
Shocking.
I didn't think Tina Turner was great. But Master Blaster in the actual
Yeah.
Thunderdome part, Master Blaster is awesome.
Yeah.
And some of that, and then in Fury Road, just I love the crazed villains that he comes up with. I think is a lot of fun, and I think one of the big reasons why Road Warrior, and I think again even from the first movie, because the first villains in the first movie, they're just kind of a gang. I mean, there isn't much to
They're a
them.
motorcycle gang.
They're a motorcycle gang. They're bad guys, but I mean that's it. But I think that's one of the big things that helped Road Warrior stand out was Max doesn't have that much of a presence. He's kind of in doing things, but a lot of it is, I mean, Humongous talks a lot. I mean, he has his speeches and stuff, and the villains are kind of carrying the movies at points, which I think is a lot of fun. That you have very memorable villains, like because even Max isn't that memorable in a way. I mean, he's a badass guy that doesn't say much and has got a sawed-off shotgun. He's not that memorable. He's cool, but I mean, yeah.
I think
But
I
a lot of
have
the
to
other
disagree
stuff.
with that.
I
I
do
think
too.
that Max is extremely remarkable, just as remarkable as his villains, because of the subtlety of his badassness. I mean, how could you possibly be that subtle and also be that badass at the same time? You can't, because you're not Mad Max, and Mad Max is those things. He is that thing. I mean, he can be badass with a look. I mean, both Mel Gibson and Tom Hardy both
Right.
perfected the grunt.
Yeah.
Well,
that
see, I think-
those
I
two
think
characters
you
can
guys
do.
are-
They say so much with just that simple little noise. And just as an aside to that, I also have to disagree. I don't know if I would necessarily call the Road Warrior a superior movie, in my opinion anyway, to the original, because especially if you stop and you really think about it in terms of the man is the myth kind of idea, because in many respects that would mean that if you go back to the first movie and watch it, pretty much only the first half of it would be considered true,
Right.
because basically the legend starts right from there. From the moment his family dies, that's
Right.
when Max becomes the legend. And now and in the world of Mad Max, that means that everything that happened after that, his encounter with the gang afterwards, could have been even grander technically than what the movie even shows. By the time we get to the Fury Road, that story could have gone above and beyond the proportions that it was on film. I mean, granted, the movie itself, obviously is never going to be unchanged by that. I mean, it's going to stay the same regardless because it's on film. It's set in stone. But if you think about it in that respect, that means you can imagine, any one person could technically imagine any one Mad Max movie being even better than it actually is.
True.
If you really wanted to. I mean, if you really wanted to stop, you could say, like, I want the first movie to be the best one because I'm going to just imagine that last battle, that last car race was even better than what it was. I mean, it's always going to be that. And I like the fact that if you look at it in that sense and you go back and watch those movies, then it kind of makes you, it adds a certain layer to it. So you can watch the first movie and you can be like, I wonder if, in the Mad Max universe, if this actually did happen.
I mean, I could see that. I still definitely prefer Road Warrior, but
I want to go back to what you're saying about the bad guys and Mad Max because I disagree with that, but for different reasons. It's kind of ironic. I don't know, maybe that's not the right word, but so the bad guys, they love to talk, but the thing about it is they say so many things and they're so bigger than life, but we know almost nothing about them. Right? They're empty shells. They're just right.
I wouldn't call them fully fleshed three-dimensional characters at all.
Right, but on the other hand, you got Mad Max, who says very, very little. But through his actions and his emotions, we learn an awful lot about the man. Right? I mean, he's not just a grunt. He's not just a powerful badass. I mean, we see, him be gentle. We see him, help people. We see him. We know that he's an honorable man, that he does have a conscience, and it just, I think that's interesting to me that especially like in Road Warrior, well, and in Fury Road, where the main villain is so vocal and so loud and so larger than life, and we hear so much from them that we know so little about them. But on the other side, we hear so little from Max,
Right.
but we know so much about him.
Yeah. I think my thing about it is, and I mean, I'm not trying to say, like, I think Max is a good character. I find myself, I find the villains more interesting because I think, in a way, I think Max is fairly generic in what he is. You know, he could be swapped with he could be swapped with Clint Eastwood's characters from a lot of his movies. He's fairly generic. He's still a great character, and I still enjoy him as a character. But I think I find Humongous and some of the other villains, I find them a lot more interesting, just visually and other stuff that's going on. Like, I agree. I don't think anybody is that fleshed out. I think we draw a lot of conclusions about him, but I think some of them we're drawing conclusions about it. Not
Max is
necessarily.
literally the most drawn or fleshed out character development. If you go by just backstory alone,
Mhm.
and
Right.
that's about as deep as it gets.
Right. Yeah. I mean, these are not deep movies.
Yeah.
You know, I would not call any of them very deep movies. They're really really fun, but I wouldn't call any of them deep. But I don't know. Lord Humongous. I love Lord Humongous. He makes me happy.
I think the point that I was kind of babbling my way to before was that in terms of Mad Max versus Road Warrior and why I think the first movie is superior is because technically speaking, it's the only one that's true.
Well, I think that's if you're completely going with that idea.
Yeah, if you go along with George Miller's idea of how the story would play out,
Right.
but so that just kind of appeals to me, knowing that that's the actual
Sure.
story of Mad
But
Max.
why are we saying that movie's true? I mean, every hero has a origin story, but that doesn't necessarily follow that the origin story.
Because
a
all
true
the
story.
other stories that according, if you go by George Miller's idea that the man is the myth and that he might not even necessarily have been there for these events, people just kind of account it that way, then it's possible that in Fury Road, for instance, that Furiosa was the only real hero in the story, and that Mad Max might have just the
Well, yeah,
quote
I
unquote
get that,
Mad
but I
Max
mean,
guy that was there, because they don't know he's Mad Max.
Yeah, I
Right.
get
They
that.
might
but
have just
my point is, I'm
assumed
trying
that
to
he was Mad
understand
Max.
why you assume that the beginning is true. I mean, why can't it
Because
also be myth?
because that would be where the legend started, and every legend starts in truth at some point in time.
I don't think so. I mean, Zorro was Zorro before Zorro had origins. You know what I mean? Superman was Superman before there was a planet Krypton. I mean, you start with
Right, but you're
stranger,
talking
and
about
then you
stories.
you
I'm
build
talking
background
about
behind
legends.
that. Huh?
Right. Well, I think
You're talking
Superman
about
doesn't.
stories. I'm talking
yeah.
about legends. I mean, it's
If we're saying the reality of the movie is real.
right. Yeah. If you were to assume that the reality of the movie is real, then the story of Mad Max in the first movie, up to the point in which his family is killed, would be true. Everything that happens after that, the revenge portion of the story, that's where the legend actually starts.
I can see that. I still think.
Because you can't account. There's no
Well,
there's
that's
no way to
I mean,
account for
yeah,
the,
I see what
the
you're
events
saying,
of
but
the story.
I would disagree with that strongly. I mean, that's not where those
So-
stories
so-
come
so
from.
it's
You start with a story. You start with there was
it's
a
kinda like-
battle and there was a guy there and he did these things and then it picks
Well,
up
it's
steam
kinda-
and
it's
told
the
to
same
another guy and it's told
idea.
to another guy and it's told to another guy, and as the story progresses and it builds, then you
And it
start building
changes and changes.
backstory.
Right.
But the backstory comes later.
But
the
not in
adventures
this
come
case.
first. Well, that's my point. Is that
In this
question
case,
is
the
why do you
backstory
presume that
happens.
that's true? There's no reason for us to presume that that's
Well,
the
because
truth.
George Miller basically told us that it's true.
So I was wrong earlier where I was saying that this is just going to be Robert and I disagreeing. Apparently, it's just Robert disagreeing with every other.
But this is an interesting question though, and I think it's definitely well worth getting into, because story versus legend,
Mhm.
they are two very different things. And most legends, most myths they start somewhere in some form of truth. Whether it be an event or a real life person that inspires certain events. And in the case of Max, in the case of Mad Max, it starts the story. The true part of the story starts. All we know about Max is that at one point in time he was a cop. Back before the world completely fell apart, he had a wife and child, and they were brutally murdered, and that's it. I mean, it's really not even a complex truth, but it is a truth. It's a truth to the story that we do know about the original man. What we don't know as truth is whether or not any of the events after that actually occurred involving Max. We know that they happened. We just don't know. Like we know that in that universe that Fury Road happened, that Furiosa rebelled against what the hell is his name?
Molten Joe.
Molten Joe.
Mountain Joe. Yeah. So yeah, she rebelled against him. Anyway, so she rebels against him, and so she meets some other guy on the road that helps her. And as far as the myth is concerned, we can just apply that it's Mad Max.
I think going off of this just a little bit, I think one of the interesting things with the Mad Max series is Mad Max and children is a common theme in all of them. Because you have the original where he's got his child, and then then it makes sense with Road Warrior, the feral child that he befriends, and he grows to care about and tries to help, and then I mean that's why fucking Thunderdome is terrible, but the whole back half of Thunderdome is him saving children.
Yeah.
But then even Fury Road, you could have the War Boy,
Mhm.
he is kind of a trying to help. So I think there's kind of
Pretty
an
much that entire race, actually, because they're all young
Right.
boys, young teenagers.
Yeah, so I think it is kind of interesting that comes up a lot, which makes sense if it maybe is the same character, the same person. I don't know. It's all interesting, but I think that is a funny thing that crops up a lot is Mad Max and children, which is kind of fun except for Thunderdome. It's where the first half of Thunderdome is awesome. That takes place in the Thunderdome, and then the back half is terrible.
Yeah.
Of him with the children is really stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Thunderdome.
Yeah. What do you do?
Yeah.
Just pretend that it doesn't exist.
You could do that. Remember, it's all a myth. We can
Right,
we
it's
can
all a
easily
myth.
pretend.
Well, we're
Throw out
we're
that
kind of doing
Thunderdome
that
doesn't actually
by
exist.
going from Road Warrior to Fury Road tonight. So
I want to believe now that Thunderdome takes place after Fury Road, and that somehow we can get a remake of Beyond Thunderdome with Tom Hardy.
See if they can do it right.
Let's bring Tina Turner back. No, it's got to be fucking terrible. It's got to be a shot for shot.
It just has to be just as bad as it was
Yeah,
before.
we want
just
old
wanna
Tina.
redo it
We
with
want
Tom
old
Hardy is
Tina
all.
Turner now.
Part of me wants to make a joke about you respecting Tina Turner, but another part of me won't let me do it.
Tina Turner didn't sing Respect.
Didn't she? Wasn't that her?
No, it was Aretha Franklin.
I thought that was Tina Turner.
No.
Oh.
wow.
Wow, Robert.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing that part of me that
Hashtag.
didn't want to. It's a good thing that part of me that didn't want to make that joke went out.
You should have gone with that initial thought.
Y'all,
'Cause no.
y'all can eat a dick.
Tina Turner did not sing Respect.
A lot of things may be up for debate tonight, but we clearly know that you don't know who sang Respect.
Now the whole world does too.
No, we all know.
Oh,
Well, I think
I know everything.
we're actually coming close. We're kind of coming to a close with our discussion here of Road Warrior, which has been interesting. I think this has been kind of a fun. It's different than if you've listened to the other podcasts, a little bit differently than we've done some of the other ones. We're going to go on to our next
I
segment.
like it.
Yeah, the other ones had Jake. Hashtag Jake sucks
Just-
balls.
It's all Jake's. Jake just ruins everything.
Love you, Jake. That's a lie. It's not true.
It's a lie. So our next segment is going to be we're going to talk about since this is MySequel, we're talking about sequels and how they relate. Like everybody to explain, do you think Road Warrior is a good sequel to Mad Max? I'm not saying if we think Road Warrior is a good movie. Is Road Warrior a good sequel to Mad Max?
Warrior.
And I'll start.
There's no alcohol involved.
No. I'll start. I think it is. I think it's a good sequel because I think it does what a good sequel should do. Is it takes the basic premise from the first movie and expands upon it and leaves further directions for it to go. And I think that's why I think that even though it is quite a bit different than the Mad Max, like I said, I think it hits a lot of the notes where it felt like Mad Max was maybe going anyways, the original. So I think it's a good sequel. I think it's a really good sequel. So who wants to go next?
I think I have to agree. I do think that Road Warrior is definitely a good sequel to Mad Max, and for a variety of reasons. Some of them I'll probably touch on once we get into the Fury Road discussion, but mainly just because he managed to pull that off, that same leap from the first movie, like I was mentioning earlier with the Terminator films, how the first and the second one are both really, really good movies, but the second one is often considered very superior because it's just a very different movie. different feeling and done so very well that it manages to be like you could actually get into the Road Warrior and not have ever even seen the original Mad Max.
And I would actually say, I think that's fairly common. I
Yeah.
don't know that many people who've actually seen the original Mad Max.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have seen Road Warrior, but a lot of people have not seen Mad Max.
Yeah, and I mean, and I think that really is kind of the true merit of a good sequel is if it can stand on its own 2 feet. I mean, if you can watch the sequel to any movie and like that movie enough, having not seen the first one, to me that's a good sign that you've made a good sequel.
Who's next?
I'm gonna let Matt go.
Based on my hazy recollection of the 2 movies, yeah.
Matt's more here for Fury Road.
Yeah.
We're
That's
kind
a
of
beautiful
discussing.
contribution to our discussion, Matt.
Right?
That's what I get paid the big bucks for.
There you go.
Matt's the ringer.
Wait a minute, he's getting paid?
Whoops.
Damn it.
Son of a bitch.
Our sweet, sweet YouTube money
That's it. That's
that
all right.
we
There's
don't have
cookies.
any
Yeah,
yet.
that just
That we don't have any yet
I'm
because
just
we haven't
gonna
released it.
tax you a cookie before we get ready for our next
I-
one.
I do have a shitload of cookies right
You
here.
do? What is
and
with all
nobody's-
these cookies?
Nobody's eaten one.
Did you get them for us?
well, that's
Yeah, well,
because somebody
sure.
has to start so that
Yeah.
everybody else knows it's okay.
So
to do
one
it.
person has to be
but
the
it's also
asshole first,
considered
and-
bad form to munch on a cookie while you're talking on a podcast.
No. That's what the people want to hear. They want to hear it.
Thunderdome sucks.
Right. All right, Robert. Robert, is this a good sequel?
I'm gonna have to say yeah. I especially agree with Ryan. The fact that it's a standalone movie really helps make it a good sequel. But it takes all the things that Mad Max did right and eliminates most of what Mad Max did wrong.
No, I think that makes sense.
Yep.
All right. Then on to our last segment, which is what would your sequel to The Road Warrior be? And we're going to discount Fury Road and Thunderdome. These movies don't exist. If you were Road Warriors come out and you are going to create a sequel, what is your sequel to The Road Warrior? I don't know if anything will ever top. Go back and listen to our Rambo one. Our Rambo Rocky crossover movie that Jake and I created, I think is maybe the greatest movie ever.
It made me want to quit.
The most theoretical, awesome movie ever. So there is no bounds to your sequel to Road Warrior. So who wants to start us off?
I think that's a really tricky one because you could do anything with Max,
Yes.
especially in the post-apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
And George Miller has proven that. Hence Thunderdome.
Yes.
You can do anything with Max. Not necessarily always a good thing, but you can do anything with him.
I think I'll start off.
Yeah, go ahead and start.
I'll
'cause I'm not
start off.
sure.
Because I think what would be awesome, because the cool car combat in Road Warrior, I really, really enjoy. I think a very cool sequel would be him teaming up again with the gyrocopter guy. They team up, and then they now have sky combat, where everybody has tricked out gyrocopters, and there's a giant chase sequence in the sky. And that's like the whole movie, and there's like a sky town, and that's my sequel to Road Warrior because I think it would be amazing.
You know what? I kind of like that. However, I just came up with my sequel, and I have to. Okay, they already made it, but we're gonna do it again anyway. We'll just remake Waterworld with Tom Hardy.
Oh, I was thinking.
Yes.
Because that's all Waterworld is. It's fucking Mad Max on the ocean.
Yep.
I was thinking about that earlier too.
It's literally if you just took Kevin Costner out of that entire movie
Yep.
and put Tom Hardy or Mel Gibson in there, it's goddamn Mad Max on the ocean.
I love it. Yes. Yep. All right, top of that, guys. I don't know.
My Mad Max sequel would be Fury Dome. And y'all,
Oh my God, yes. Yes.
y'all can eat a dick.
If like the halfway point of Fury Road is they stop, but instead of getting to there with the ladies and stuff like that, they get to the fucking Thunderdome.
And they stay in the Thunder.
And they stay in the Thunderdome. And Furiosa and Mad Max fight Immortan Joe in the Thunderdome. And Master Blaster tags in. Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
that really wasn't my answer. By the way,
Oh.
I have two.
That's a great answer.
I
though.
know.
That is a good
Except for I didn't. I just said the title, and you ran with it. That was your movie. So no, I have two
Okay.
possible sequels. The
All right.
first one would be and I'm kind of stealing from the next Conan movie because I would like to see a Mad Max where he does settle down. He does find a settlement of some kind, and he kind of loses that edge because he's found a home, and at some point he gets thrown out. They get invaded, whatever, and he's got to find that edge again and come back. But an older Mad Max in that scenario. Another one I would like to see, and this is a little different, but I would like to see Mel Gibson come back and play the villain, but a much more fleshed out villain.
Yeah.
Not being Max, but being Mel Gibson being Mel Gibson.
It's Mel Gibson.
And
He doesn't
angry,
have to be anything
angry
else.
Mel Gibson, but and throw Tom Hardy at him.
I think that was kind of an idea that was toyed around with at one point. Was the
I
idea of
like
having
that.
both Tom Hardy and Mel Gibson in the same movie before they made Fury Road. They were.
I
talking
like
about
that. That's fun. That would be very interesting.
Yeah.
No, I like both those, Robert. Those are.
I always come up with good ones. It's you guys that come up with this crappy
Well,
Thunder.
No,
okay,
no.
okay. Well, hold
crap.
on though.
that is not
Hold
dumb.
on though.
My
I
idea was
am
not
gonna say
dumb.
though. I do have to say the first idea of him settling down. I don't know if I like that one. Mostly just because I don't like the idea of seeing Max as old, because apparently that seems to be the fucking thing nowadays, is we have to take these classic characters and they have to be old.
Yeah, we have to have
i.e.
Harrison Ford.
Terminator.
Rambling around in the new Star Wars.
Yes.
I don't want him to wait
We
till
have-
he's 70 years old.
We have old Rocky. We have old Terminator. We have old all of them. They're
Maybe
all
he doesn't
old
need to be
now.
old. I mean, I don't want to see him as an old man, but I want to see him find
Yeah.
civilization and,
Yeah.
and just
Well, I think
lose that edge he's got to him, and then have to find that again. You know, maybe he doesn't even have to be the leader of a settlement, or maybe he finds love, or and instead of fighting for petrol in a movie, he's fighting for a family or something.
You
But
want it to be Unforgiven?
Yeah.
Oh my
why
God.
not? Unforgiven
Yes.
was- Unforgiven
Yes.
was a great-ass movie.
Yes.
See, we should just not do an actual sequel to Road Warrior. We'll just
Wasn't
take
that
a
about
movie that's
stripper-
already been
no,
made,
stripper
and we'll just put
revenge?
Tom
Yeah.
Hardy in there.
Yeah,
and call it a
kinda.
Mad
That's
Max
like
movie.
how the ball gets rolling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stripper revenge, you killed my black friend revenge.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then he turns into a scary person at the end. Instead
Oh,
of
that
everything.
movie. Oh my God. It's not a sequel, but we should talk about Unforgiven sometime because Unforgiven is fucking awesome.
Yes, it is.
So it's
It'll
kind
give
of.
me an excuse to watch my copy of it too.
There you go. I think what's funny, Robert, what you were talking about is, for those of you out there that like comic books and stuff, is actually very similar to a comic book called Old Man Logan,
Mm-hmm.
which is a lot of the same idea that kind of the warrior has settled down and lost his edge and goes on a road trip to save his people. It's kind of interesting. No, I like both of those. I think those would be interesting. All right, Matt, round us out.
I've got a couple ideas, and I'm torn, but like which movie would work better that we're discussing tonight. But I think for this one, I think it would be interesting if like you explored the world more, and what if there was part of it that wasn't as messed up as everything else, and stumble on that.
Oh, that there's still society somewhere?
Yeah, but then they're just like letting Australia sort itself out or something.
It's 28 days later.
Yeah.
Australia is the only part of the world. Everywhere else is fine.
And of course, Max shows up, and it all goes to hell.
Yeah. Or there's like some island of civilization, and then like the bad guys follow him there or something.
Big long car pursuit that culminates in the Walmart parking lot. And
Yeah.
once the shop is going, what the fuck?
What the fuck, man?
Oh my God.
It's Black Friday.
yes.
What did you expect?
Yes. No,
Where
I
the hell
li-
did you come from?
I like that. I think that'd be a very interesting
I kind of
movie.
like that one too.
It's something that actually I thought of that after watching Fury Road, when you see like the scene with the satellite in the sky, and you're
Yeah.
like, well, that could just be going through its motions, and its power source still works, so it's still doing its thing. But what if there's something else still going on in the world?
Yeah.
What if somebody's actually still using it?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
And there's
It's just people are
communication
just staying out of it because it's like we don't want any part of this.
Yeah.
So basically, we could everything's been taking place in Australia. Mad Max finally gets out of Australia, lands in like Japan, and there's like everything's just perfectly fucking normal. Everyone's like, "What's wrong?"
Yes.
No, you were just in Australia this whole time. Duh.
This is just present
This
day
is what
Australia.
happens in the real world.
This, yeah, this is. I assume this is what Australia is actually like.
Yeah.
What was that Brendan Fraser movie where he was locked in the
Blast from the past.
blast from the
Yeah.
past?
Yep. There you go.
Like Encino Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Encino Max.
Encino Max.
You know.
No, I like it.
I do kind of like it though. I mean, as more of an actual movie though. If
Yeah,
you
that'd
just
be-
stumbled upon a place.
yeah,
that
that'd be very
actually
interesting.
Had their shit together, and
Yeah.
and he somehow manages to screw it up inadvertently or something.
Yeah. I like that. Well, I think that pretty well rounds out our discussion of Road Warrior. Thank you for listening. Make sure to we're gonna give the like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. We have other videos on there. We have other podcasts. We have short films that we're always working on. We have some more stuff coming in the future here. And make sure if you listen to this one, make sure to go back and listen to some of our other ones, and make sure to listen to the next episode, which will be Mad Max Fury Road. So I think with that, thanks for sticking with us, and we'll see you next time.